It's really exciting to be able to come on every Friday and see all of your smiling faces. And this evening, um, we are going to be sharing a little talk that I think my heart is really in this talk because of speaking with people and realizing how many people don't know this information. And as we're trying to go live, I thought it was going to go live, but nothing's happening. So we'll just press on.
I got the notification on the screen that it says live. You're live
Okay,
streaming.
that's wonderful. Thank you. So that's very helpful. Let's see if we can bring up our slide set. And if we can, we'll work with that. If not, no worries. So, good evening, everyone. Thank you again for
Can't
joining us on
record.
Doctor's Orders. I'm sorry, someone was saying something.
Record. Record.
Thank you. That's great. Okay. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Doctor's Orders. This is Coach Carla Joy and friends who have, I call you guys family because you're friends that have become family. We've been together for quite a few years doing this process, and it's really been a blessing to me to be part of this group. Usually, we have Ruth Presley with us as our hostess. And I'm so grateful to have her as part of our community because she has been really the hostess with the mostest. Now, each of you here is familiar with me, but in case there's someone who has not seen me before, I'd like to introduce myself and give you just a short version of my story because maybe you're going to be sharing this with someone else and you'd like them to know, well, who is this person that I'm sharing with you? I'm Coach Carla Joy. I'm a medically trained health coach, and I've also been trained in informed medical decision making. And later on today, in this presentation, that will become a little more significant. Now, I'm sharing this with you because several years ago, I had a shock. And the shock was that I was pre diabetic. Now, I don't know if you've been told that you're pre diabetic and whether or not that was a shock to you. But you see, I came from a family where my uncle and my grandmother were both diabetic. One was type 1 and one was type 2, and they both succumbed to the complications of diabetes. And now we're told that Alzheimer's is often called diabetes type 3. And so it really is a connection with my family. So if you remember how it felt when you heard that a relative or friend or maybe even you were told that you're pre-diabetic or borderline diabetic, if you remember how that felt, you know how I felt. I was scared. I actually panicked. But then I prayed, and I prayed for something that I had never seen. I prayed for a healing, for a reversal of my situation. And it took a couple of years of trying different types of eating plans, of going to different modalities, of visiting different types of practitioners before I was introduced to the documentary Forks Over Knives by my goddaughter, who is now a doctor of physical therapy. And she also introduced me to the work of Dr. Michael Greger, who, in his presentation, Uprooting the Cause of Disease, went through the list of the CDC's 15 most common causes of death. And Number 7 on that list was diabetes and complications of diabetes. But in our community, we know that it's higher on the list because one of the complications of diabetes is kidney disease. Another number one cause of death among diabetics is heart disease. And heart disease is number one on the list of causes of death in the United States. So it's not just a clean, clear cut situation. We really do have a case for taking a look at the impact of diabetes. And I'm telling you my story because I want you to know what I found out. And what I found out is that there is hope, that what I had never seen before, which was seeing people recover, seeing people get better, I now know that it is possible. In the documentary Forks Over Knives, there are persons who actually recovered, and Dr. Neil Barnard is a physician in the Washington, D.C. area, and he has a clinic there. And one of the things that he does is use lifestyle medicine as a treatment for his clients. And we're going to talk a little bit about that because today we're going to talk about the real truth about diabetes. So, first, I'm going to ask you some questions. If you were to go out on the street right now and ask 5 or 10 people, what is the cause of diabetes? I'd like you to type in the chat what you think they would answer. What do you think is the cause, people would say is the cause of diabetes? Let's see if I can find the chat so I can see what you are writing. Okay, I think some of you got that. That's right. That's what people would tell you, that sugar is the cause of diabetes. Now, I want to make it clear. In the United States, it is absolutely possible to eat too much sugar. Absolutely. However, in the work that Dr. Neil Barnard did, in the research that he did, which is what I'm going to be sharing with you today, he was able to point out that sugar is not the cause of diabetes, but rather that the diabetes is a dysregulation of how your body actually treats sugar, but it's not the cause. And so I'm going to be sharing hopefully a few slides that will help us understand what the cause of type 2 diabetes really is. Now, before I go into the science and before some of you, your eyes glaze over, I want to tell you, please don't make any changes to your medical regimen without having a discussion with your medical professional. The information that I'll be sharing here is not meant to replace the information or the instructions of your medical professional. Now, I don't know if you can see my screen, and I don't know. Oh, okay, okay, I think you can see it. And we'll try to get through this. So please talk to your medical professional. This does not replace a discussion with your medical professional. We're here to educate you so that you can make an informed decision. I spoke about the fact that I'm trained by Wellness Forum Health as a health educator, and our training is in informed medical decision making. We give you the information so that you can make the best decision for you. Now, Dr. Neil Barnard has, as I mentioned before, been doing research on health conditions. And here is some research, an illustration of some neat research that he did. They worked with several populations and they gave them different diet plans. And what this graph shows is that those people who were non-vegetarian, they were eating probably what we would call the standard American diet, that among them, there was more than 7% of them would develop diabetes. Those who were semi-vegetarian, they were eating either meat or fish once or maybe twice a week. They would have a 6% prevalence of diabetes. Those who were eating only fish as the only source of animal products, they had a 4.8, nearly 5% prevalence of that. Do you see there's a trend here? Those who were eating lacto-ovo vegetarian, that means they used dairy products, lacto meaning milk products, ovo meaning egg products. So they were eating vegetarian, but they included milk and egg products. They only had a 3% prevalence. But those who had removed all animal products from their eating plan, they had a less than 3%, a 2.9% prevalence of diabetes. Now, this is significant because for the first time, we have evidence, because this research was done years ago, we have evidence from a population of Americans that the prevalence of diabetes can be impacted by what we eat. But it's not about sugar. You notice that they were seeing that people were eating different amounts of animal products. Now, why is that important? Dr. Barnard used I'm using some of his visuals here. He tried to explain it, and I want to do it at the top of this time so that you can, if you have to jump off, you'll at least have this basic information. So if this blue area represents a cell, think of the cell as being like a house. So the house has windows and doors. The doors have locks, and the windows let in chemicals. In this case, the windows let in glucose. So glucose is floating around in the blood, and we want the glucose to come into the cell. But to do that, we need a key, and then the windows will open and the glucose can come into the cell. So if the key is the hormone called insulin, insulin, when it's available, goes and opens the lock, and the glucose can come through the window and get into the cell. But you may see that there's some other things going on in this cell, and that is that there is fat. The medical professionals call it intramyocellular lipid, but we can just call it fat. From a high-fat diet, that gets into the cell and prevents the key from working. How many of you have heard of insulin resistance? It's very popular now because now we know, and we've known it for decades, but now the population is getting to know that diabetes type 2 is related to insulin resistance. But what we haven't been told is what causes this insulin resistance. And here, the biochemists have found that people who eat a high-fat diet consistently, their muscle cells get clogged with fat because the cells store the fat. The cells don't want to burn the fat. They just store it and want to keep it for later. And in doing that, it acts like putting chewing gum in a lock. The key is the correct key. The lock is the correct lock. I mean, you actually get to your own home and you got the key that if somebody put gum in the lock, your key won't work. And this is the analogy that Dr. Barnard was using to describe insulin resistance, because if the key is available, that's insulin, the lock is available on the cell, but it's clogged by intramyocellular fat, lipid or fat, then the glucose will not get into the cell, and the glucose level in your blood keeps rising and rising until it attaches to proteins all over in the blood and makes your hemoglobin A1C go up. That's the connection. Your hemoglobin A1C goes up because there's too much glucose floating around in the blood because it can't get into the cell. So sugar is not our enemy. Sugar is what our body uses in the energy components called mitochondria in the cell to give us the energy for our bodies to work. And I wanted to explain that right up front so that you could ask questions at the end and you can know that you can have a solution to this situation that so many of us have been diagnosed with or have friends and relatives. Please excuse me while I drink some water. So, what then can we eat? That's the second most common question that I get. What can we eat? And here are Dr. Barnard's recommendation. The Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine developed the Power Plate, and you can see that it's made up of fruit, vegetables, grains, and legumes. Legumes are peas and beans. So very often people ask me, what can I eat? So for breakfast, you can have blueberry pancakes or oatmeal with cinnamon and raisins, half a cantaloupe, rye toast with jam. People say, wait, are you saying that we could have pancakes and rye toast? Yes. If you make it with a whole grain, then you can use some of that because that is healthy. If you are gluten sensitive or if you are have a celiac problem, then you would want to avoid wheat, but you can use other grains. For lunch, you can have a chunky vegetable chili, a garden salad with sesame dressing. And remember, whenever you have a salad, you could add the legumes to that. My favorite is chickpeas and black beans and corn. You can throw that in with your salad. As a snack, you can have banana or another fruit. And for dinner, you could have lentil soup with crackers, linguine with artichoke hearts, and seared oyster mushrooms and steamed broccoli. So this is just an example of a full day's eating that you can do without having any animal products included. Because we're so used to having animal products, we sometimes forget that you can go a whole day without eating animal products. And if you go to the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine and look for their recipe list, that you can find recipe lists there, and we can help you with some more. Now, people who ate whole food plant-based versus people who were eating the standard American diet found, or who went on a diet, found that there was differences in what took place over 14 weeks. So they placed people on a diet where they were counting calories and they were restricting their eating, and they found that they actually did lose weight. They lost about 8 pounds. Those who went to a vegan diet, removed all animal products from it, they lost an average of 12 pounds. So this is research that was done, and you can see the reference for the research. And this was research that was done in 2005. So we have known for a long time that if you remove the animal products from your eating plan, you can improve your weight loss and you can improve your hemoglobin A1C. What happened after they followed up the people after a year, and they found that even though those who had been on a restricted diet, they actually did lose weight, after the second year, they regained all the weight. Those who remained on a a fully plant-based eating plan, removing all the animal products, they were not only able to maintain their weight, they actually continued additional weight loss. And that's what this diagram shows. I hope you guys are seeing the slide because that that's the whole point of having put them up here, because a picture is often worth even 1,000 of my words. Now, one of the reasons that I'm including this slide here is because when you count calories, many people are trying to restrict the amount of calories that come from complex carbohydrates. However, the research shows that we really do need to have complex carbohydrates, and because they are fiber. And you can find them in peas and beans and in green vegetables and also in root vegetables, because the fiber produces the type of carbohydrate that your body wants and uses. When you have meals that are high in fat, each gram of fat produces 9 calories, whereas each gram of complex carbohydrate only produces 4 calories. So you don't actually have to restrict the amount of food that has complex carbohydrates in it, because just by eating more food that's made up of complex carbohydrates, you actually reduce their calorie count, because the complex carbohydrates have less calories per gram. And again, if you have questions, please put your questions in the chat. The other thing that Dr. Barnard wanted to point out is that many of us are concerned about our metabolic rate. We're concerned about the fact that our metabolism slows down. And what their research found was that when you eat a plant-based meal, which contains a lot of fiber, and that means it contains complex carbohydrates, it actually raises your metabolic rate. Now, it's not by a whole heap. It's only about 15%, but that is enough to make a difference. And that increased increased metabolic rate stays around for about 2 hours. So that if you're eating every 2 to 4 hours, you can bring your metabolic rate back up with the next high complex carbohydrate meal. And I'm not saying that you just eat bread or something like that, but you eat whole foods which contain fiber, which will give you the complex carbohydrates that you need. The next point is what I mentioned earlier about the impact on your hemoglobin A1C. When you look at this graph, you'll see that those who were using, those in red, they had a reduction in their hemoglobin A1C. They went from 7.8, I think, to about 7.6. However, those who had been eating, and they had been using the American Diabetic Association diet plan. But those who had removed all the animal products from their eating plan, they went from an average of hemoglobin A1C of 8 to a hemoglobin A1C of 6.5. Now, if I offered you a drug that would bring your hemoglobin A1C down 2 units, I think you would raise your hand for that. And this is without adding any medication. People were able to reduce their hemoglobin A1C out of the level of 8 and down to a level of 6. And yes, it took a series of weeks, and that's why we need to be consistent. We need to make up our minds that we're going to make this change. And just for those of you who like to geek out on this stuff, remember I told you about the intracellular fat. The control subjects, they had they had less intramyocellular fat, and those who experienced insulin resistance, they had higher levels of intramyocellular fat. Those are for the geeks among us who like the science. So we may have been told that if you eat just plants, you're not going to get complete nutrition. Well, Dr. Barnard wanted to emphasize that the macronutrients, carbohydrates, fats, and proteins are all available in fruits, vegetables, grains, peas, and beans. And some people will say, well, what about specific micronutrients like calcium or magnesium or iron? Well, they are all from the earth. The plants pull them out of the earth and they are in the plants. So when we eat the plants, we get the calcium. When we eat the plants, we get the iron. When we eat the plants, we get the magnesium. People who are suffering from these deficiencies need to dialogue with their medical professionals and begin the process of adding more fruits and vegetables to their eating plan. He said, what about vitamin B12? Well, I know that you guys, I'm talking to a sophisticated group, so you know that vitamin B12 is not produced by fruits or vegetables or even by animal products. It's actually produced by bacteria. And because we tend to wash everything, we live in very clean environments, we boil our water, we remove all the bacteria from our water, we are living in a really hyper sterile environment. So we don't get access to vitamin B12 as much as we may have when we used to run out in the yard. Remember, did anybody's parents tell them go play in the yard? And they never said eat dirt, but we used to end up eating dirt. And so we got access to bacteria, more bacteria than we do now. So many medical professionals recommend a vitamin B12 supplement. Dr. Barnard recommends that if you do choose to do this, which he recommends, then you take the lowest available dose. Don't mega dose on vitamin B12. You only need a small amount. And he wanted to dispel the myth that you cannot get your sufficient nutrients from plants. So you may be asking, well, Coach Carla, are you telling me that I have to go vegan? I'm telling you, I want you to know that people who make the decision to remove all the animal products out of their eating plan, they see the most rapid and significant improvement in their diabetes. Why? Because one of the highest sources of fats that end up in our muscle comes from the animal products, also from dairy products. I don't know if you realized it, but cheese and butter, mainly fat. And you say, well, I'm using milk that is 2% or fat-free milk. Keep in mind that milk may contribute to other situations, and we can talk about that another time. But eliminating dairy products from your eating plan is a huge step to removing sources of fat. And the final one would be added fats. So whether it is virgin or extra extra virgin, or whether it's motor oil, you shouldn't be adding any fats to your eating plan because all of these natural foods, whole foods, already have enough fats. If you do need something like omega fats, well, we can help you with that, and I will tell you about that in a moment. But in terms of our general eating, we don't need to add fats, and we can actually show you. Chef Karen Carlisle is one of our friends who shows us how we can cook without adding extra fat. Now, I want to show you how we can help you make the one simple changes that you need. Based on the research, removing animal products from your eating plan is going to improve the outcomes if you or family members are dealing with diabetes. But for many of us, the idea of adding more and more and more fruits and vegetables to our eating plan is a little daunting. I showed you the meal plan that Dr. Barnard suggested for one day. However, when you think about planning for the long term, because you saw some of the research was done over 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 10 weeks, 12 weeks, 4 months, and a year. This has to be a long term proposition. And for some of us, that's a bit daunting. Well, we can help you. We can help you add 30 concentrated fruits and vegetables and berries to your eating plan. The Juice Plus product has the fruits, 10 fruit, 10 vegetables, 10 berries. What I want you to take away from this time, though, is that you may be getting fruit and vegetable concentrates from somewhere else, but there's a significant difference. We know our farmers. We have a specific relationship with our farmers, and we know that it is minimal pesticides or herbicides, if any at all. So they're grown in pristine conditions. They're not picked until they're fully ripe. And as soon as they're picked, they're flash frozen and concentrated into powders and placed in capsules, plant-based capsules, by the way. We also have a third party that comes in and tests so that there are no things in it that should not be there. There are no hidden compounds. They're not hiding anything, and there's everything that's supposed to be there is in those capsules. So we have third party, but something that is even beyond that is that the research. The Juice Plus product has been researched for 30 years. And so we know, based on research, double-blind, placebo-controlled, the highest standard of research, what happens when concentrated fruits and vegetables of the Juice Plus product get into your body over time. And so there may be imitations out there, but they can't imitate 30 years of research. If you are interested in getting omegas into your body, then I want you to know that fish don't make omegas. They actually concentrate it from the algae that they eat. But they're also swimming around in contaminated water, so they're concentrated the toxins in the water and from the fish and the other animals that they ate. So we bypass the middle fish and we've gone to 6 sources of natural omegas. The algae and other plant-based sources. And we're not just taking out omega-3, but they occur in nature as 3, 5, 6, 7, and 9. So in our omega blend, we have all of the omegas that occur in nature that your body can use. And I wanted you to know that we're here and we can help you with that. And that adding fruits and vegetables just got easier. We've talked about the capsules you can have, and now we have the superfood, which is the equivalent of the capsules that you can just put into water and drink. So if you'd like the capsules, you can have those. You can have the chewables, and you can now open the sleeve. Each one of these is equivalent to a serving of the fruits, the vegetables, and the berries. And if you get started, if an adult gets started on this healthy living journey, you can sponsor a child, and the child will get the fruit and vegetables from the age of 4 years old to the age of 24. Our company is investing in the future of your family. Even if the child doesn't live with you, even if it's not your child, it could be a neighbor's child, that you can support the future. We also want to let you know that this month we have a mind and body wellness duo where we added our Luminate. The Luminate allows you sharper focus, increased mental energy, improved working memory, heightened alertness, and it's calming as well. That's an amazing combination. So with the research from the superfood and the combination of the Luminate, ask the person who invited you to see this. You can actually get started by making a difference and getting on the Juice Plus Superfood and the Luminate packet, the Mind and Body Wellness Duo, this month. We also have access to the complete shake. We have it in vanilla and chocolate. And some of us have 2 shakes a day, and they actually serve to provide more nutrients. You may be saying, well, what's in it? Well, you have chickpea powder, pea protein, amaranth, millet, quinoa, radish sprouts, broccoli sprouts, alfalfa sprouts. So it's not exactly the same formula as the superfood, but it contains a lot of the protein and the complex carbohydrates that we've been looking for. So I've shared all of this with you, and I hope that you get 2 takeaways. Number one, the research shows that diabetes type 2 is completely reversible if you would make 1 or 2 simple changes. Dr. Barnard recommends that the first 2 simple changes, it would be to remove animal products or reduce them to once or twice a week, a serving, if this is a serving for you, once or twice a week, and remove the dairy products. And the recommendation that I have, based on what he shared, is to eat more fruits and vegetables. And to help you with that, we're here and we're offering you an opportunity to jumpstart your healthy living journey. Now, don't forget to reach out to the person who invited you. We would love to do a 3-way call so that we can answer your questions. We'd love for you to join us in Indianapolis, Indiana in September. It's not too late to get your ticket and to come with us. And if you're a medical professional, you can actually register for the Nutraceuticals Conference. I'll be there, so come and find me. And of course, come back next Friday when we will continue our journey of getting the truth about our health so that you can make an informed decision yourself and you can share it with your friends and relatives. Now, if all of my friends, all my buddies would unmute themselves and we can say together what we say every Friday night.
Eat
More
more
Eat
fruits and
fruits
vegetables.
and vegetables.
Eat more fruits and vegetables. Thank you so much for joining us. We look forward to seeing you. This is Coach Carla Joy and friends. And Ruth Presley's with us. She's here. We're here with you. Thank you so much. And we look forward to seeing you next time.